Welcome to the 1905 podcast. Joe and I have been going to Stamford Bridge for over 30 years. For the past 3 years, we've been exchanging voice notes on everything from the highs in Porto to the lows of Potter. Each week, this podcast will take you inside our unfiltered thoughts on all things Chelsea, sharing our view from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding stand. Let's hit the notes. Joe and I are back in 2025 after a little bit of a break over Christmas with a slightly stripped back to format is our plan for the next few weeks. So I'm going to go back to kind of basics is what we attended with the podcast, which is straight off the bat voice notes, super simple. That was always our original vision for the podcast, really. It's kind of what we've done for years. And so what you're here to start with is our reactions to the Palace game. And I'm recording this about 5 minutes after that very game. And that was incredibly disappointing, wasn't it? I thought it was very similar to the Fulham game, I think, in many ways, in that we were pretty in control in the first half and at 1-0 had chances to kill the game and didn't. And in the Premier League, when you do that, when you don't do that, you normally get punished. And it just felt the longer the game went on, we're going to get caught here. Palace are going to equalise. And it happened, and it was a really sloppy goal. Again, similar to recent games, giving the ball away in key areas. It was Palmer this time. It's just so frustrating. So frustrating. Chelsea have gone from a position where, with a sort of cheeky grin on our face, we could say maybe we've got a chance of being title contenders. None of us really thought that. But the main thing was, actually, we're quite a nice gap away from those teams fighting for top 4, top 5, as it might be for the Champions League. And those dizzy heights have been completely killed off in the last 4 games. And now we're very much in the rat race, as it will be this season, to get top 4. And it's just so frustrating. What can I say about the game? I'm sending this straight after the final whistle, so probably more of an emotional reaction you're going to get, which is just pretty pissed off. But great goal, obviously. Really great goal. Brilliant from Sancho, I thought. Was really good at times. But as you've said, Joe, it kind of summed him up, that game, because he has these moments. He does an absolute moment of genius, like he did. Brilliant dummy, great ball to Palmer, obviously great finish. And then you might not see him for 20 minutes. You sort of forget he's there. And that just feels very much, what you get with Sancho a lot of the time. And I do like him. I'm not saying I don't like him as a player, but it is frustrating. He kind of drifts in and out of games. But it was a very good goal. And then we just had chances and just not clinical enough. The big one for me is Jackson at 1-0 in the second half, where just you have to score. You just got to score chances like that. He had one in the first half as well, didn't he, where he hit it with the outside of his right foot instead of his left, and then one in the second half. And you've just got to kill games off. You get a second, completely changes the game, and you can then go and maybe win it 3 or 4. So really disappointing. I'll end this note on a positive. I thought Josh Achipong was pretty good, actually. Really comfortable on the ball. It was positive immediately to see him come in for Disasi and Tosin, who have been pretty dreadful, to be fair, in the last couple of games. So I think showing confidence in him was very good. We obviously had the very bad news about Fofana pre-match, and he's pretty much going to be out for the season. And I think what Josh showed you is what you get when you get quality coming out of Cobham. He just looks so comfortable on the ball, so assured. I thought his defensive work against Mateta was really good as well. And he might solve a big problem for us in that area if he continues to develop. I'm sure I'll let you talk to this point a bit more, Joe, because I know you really think we do need to go out in January and bring in a centre-back, so I won't steal your thunder there. But he was excellent, and for me, I think I said on our little WhatsApp group after about 10 minutes, I can say confidently now he's already better in my eyes than Disasi and Tosin. Just the way he was on the ball, and the fact that you could then move Colwell back into the middle of the sort of centre 3, as it turns out to be when they make it a 3. He looks so much better there. And yeah, generally it was looking pretty good at 1-0. I thought players were playing well. I thought Enzo was having a good game, but you don't take your chances. You pay the price, and yeah, I'm just gutted with that. Let me know what you think, Joe, and I will respond back when I have recovered. Cheers.
I've got to say, mate, I feel exactly the same. I just feel completely and utterly, well, do I feel pissed off? I don't know if I do. I should feel pissed off. 2 points from 12 with Everton, Fulham, Ipswich, and Crystal Palace now feels like a really worrying trend. I think my biggest fear was that we were going to be quite a young team and we'd had this really brilliant start. So it meant that actually, as the season went on and we could see all the other teams, doing the old bumper cars behind us and the wheels falling off, we could just sort of slowly but surely nick a point here, nick a win there, nick another point here, nick another win there, and suddenly you'd be like head and shoulders above. You'd have a 9-point, 10-point gap with about 5 or 6 games remaining, and you'd feel quite comfortable. Now, obviously, we are in the middle, well, not even the middle of January, the beginning of January, and the City are like 2 points behind. Newcastle are a point behind. Villa are 3 points behind. Bournemouth are 3 points behind. Villa, I said Villa. There's like everybody now behind us and even Nottingham Forest have got a chance to go 4 points clear of us tomorrow. I mean, for fuck's sake, Nottingham Forest. I mean, again, it's very easy to sort of say one thing and take it away with the other, but we shouldn't be in a rat race with Nottingham Forest. We should not have picked up 2 points from 12. And the thing that frustrates me the most is that you could have an iffy run, but an iffy run should have been 6 points from 12. Really, it should 2 win. Really, it should have been 7 points. If we're being really honest and fair, the Everton game was brutal in the conditions. It was gross. We could have nicked it, but so could have they. So you take a point there, you go, okay, let's move on. You have to beat Fulham with 10 minutes to go. You just have to. But the Ipswich game, we just never showed up. And today you have to win. So if you class the Ipswich game as an outlier, you should be beating Fulham at home with 10 minutes left, and you should be beating Palace away with 10 minutes to go. And that's the biggest problem. You've gone from Fulham actually not even drawing the game, you've ended up losing it, which these things happen. But if you take 7 points from 12, you are still well clear of everybody else, knowing that they're going to have ups and downs as well along the way. But you've now brought yourself basically back level with everybody. And City are going to go through it. They're going to go on a run. They just are. I don't think they're very good actually at the moment, but they're just a much more rounded team. Phil Foden's not going to be terrible forever. Haaland's not going to be terrible forever. Bernardo Silva, etc., etc., etc. You can go through their whole team, so they're going to be a threat. So are you looking at Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City now, and then it's one from everybody else? Because Newcastle have obviously hit a patch of form. Nottingham Forest aren't going anywhere. Then you've got obviously Villa and Bournemouth and all the other teams around you. Just, we can drop to 7th in a week now. I mean, that's just unheard. We were second with about a 5-6 point gap at one point. I mean, what's happened? That's unacceptable in my opinion. I don't care how young the team is. That's unacceptable. And you can argue injuries and stuff, but everybody's got them. So we actually can't grumble. Well, we can grumble as a fan base, but the players can't sit there and say we're tired. Rubbish. I'm not having it. Everton, Ipswich, Palace, and Fulham are not high intense, taxing games of football. We should have had. I don't know what the possession stats were today, but we should have had most of the possession. I felt as though we actually controlled the game weirdly, but without killing it off at any point. Do you remember Jorginho coming on a few years back when we were really struggling? Loftus-Cheek was playing, and a few of the younger players were playing, and we couldn't keep the ball. And I think it might have been Lampard. He threw on Jorginho in the middle of the park, and he just said, "Right, keep it and pass it, keep it and pass it." And Palace didn't get the ball for 20 minutes. Today, we're still playing. I don't mind us going for a second goal, but if you are going to sit on a 1-0 win, actually sit on a 1-0 win. Bring on defenders, but bring on defensive-minded players. Sit back, actually sit. If you're going to keep going for the counter-attack, then make it count. The amount of times that Gusto went forward and was never found was actually driving me insane. Neto as well was another one, flying forward and we never gave him the ball. We did all the hard work to get there. We flew past the halfway line, and then with the next pass, we would just go backwards again or go sideways. I'm thinking, well, you've gone for the counter-attack, so go for the counter-attack. Don't keep sitting back and sort of, it was like we didn't know whether to go for it or not, and it was just really, really fucking weird. It's just really, really, I just can't believe how poor these run of games have been. And yeah, like you, doing this fairly quickly after the match because I want to get it out because it's in me, and I feel like if I get it out, it'll make me feel better for the rest of the day. But I don't think anyone was bad. That's the point. That's what's annoying. I think everybody was about a 6.5 out of 10. I think I'd maybe add. I thought Colwill and Acheampong as a partnership was very good. I thought they handled everything really well. I thought Sancho had one of his better games. I thought, obviously, you've mentioned the goal, Chris, the assist for the goal, and it was wonderful when everybody's seen it, so I'm not going to go on about it. But I actually thought his defensive work today was outstanding in the second half. He obviously did make a mistake coming in field at one of those points and holding onto the ball too long, which caused a chance for Palace. But I thought, you know what, overall, he had a very good game. I agree, with what I've said and what you said there. He does drift in and out of matches, which is frustrating, but he's someone, I think he's been our best one of our best purchases. I think he's outshining Madueke. I think he's outshining Neto. He's clearly outshining Mudryk, and anybody else who's coming on in those wider roles. He's outshining all of them. So I think he has to keep playing and he has to start. And it's another fantastic assist. I mean, he's getting, an assist every other game or pretty much. I mean, you can't ask much more than that in the Premier League, and particularly when he's not playing every game either. I thought the fullbacks did pretty well. I mean, again, Gusto. I think that's Gusto's best game for a long time. I think Gusto's been rank bad actually for probably a good couple of months. If we're being truthful, he hasn't played every single minute of every game, but he's played enough, and I think he's been really, really poor. But I think that today was his best game for a long while. So pleased for him. Again, I'm jumping a bit here with players and where they're playing. But I thought let's just go back to the goalkeeper. I thought he had an okay game, but once again, a complete cock up. I mean, he just throws the ball out to Gusto, who's not even looking, and then Palace receive it right in the edge of our box. And if the guy just turns around and chips Sanchez or plays the correct pass, it would have been won a lot earlier than that. And be that he then goes on to make a fantastic save. And this is Sanchez. He makes a brilliant save, then a completely brilliant cock up. And I think, well, you just can't keep doing this. He's so annoying. He's so annoying to try and sort of review because he has had some good moments and then he's had some shocking moments. I thought Enzo and Caicedo actually had a when I say 6.5, not I'm being a bit blanketed there, I know, but I think they did pretty well. It is Crystal Palace. They should be better. They should have more quality than them. But you can only play what's in front of you, and I thought they handled things decently enough, but again, they just didn't kill the game off enough. It's too much. It's a ping pong match, isn't it? It's too, we fly up the pitch, get tackled, they fly down the pitch, we make a tackle, we fly up the pitch and get tackled. Like you felt like the Palace were never going to score, but at 1-0, you can't rely on that. And when you keep flying forward and you don't actually sit on a 1-0, then you're always going to leave yourself open to a counter attack, which is kind of what happened with. Obviously, they pitched the ball off Palmer and then obviously made their equaliser through Eze, and I think Mateta getting the goal at the end there. I mean, it's just one of them. It just feels like you've totally given it up again. And then what really frustrates me, and I'm sure every Chelsea fan worth their salt is frustrated, we then start playing again when there's 7 minutes to go plus injury time or whatever it was. Suddenly we look lively again. We're interested again, and I think, well, why? We were sort of playing on the counter attack, but sort of never. We sort of were protecting ourselves. We didn't want to sort of go too harsh on it, and then we were sort of pass backwards and sideways and keep it quite safe. When Sanchez, I'm talking when Sanchez had the ball, he would obviously fling it out. We'd go 100 miles an hour to like the halfway line and then stop. But then the moment we can see the equaliser, we're all like, "Come on, let's go!" Well, it can't be. It can't be like that. Either sit and fucking defend it, or go forward. Oh my God, just can't believe that we've dropped more points today. I can believe it because I think we all know with this Chelsea team, they've got a goal in them to concede. it just seems to be the case. Whatever we do at the moment, you just know they're going to give up a stupid chance, which is what happened again. And I'm not angry. I'm actually not angry. I'm just a bit sick of December. I know we're not in December right now, but it feels like it. We're in this little period where you feel you're looking at all the games, and you're looking at games now coming up, like Wolves and whoever it is. You're thinking, oh, are we going to beat them? And Bournemouth and whoever. And Bournemouth are playing very well at the moment, and there's no guarantees of anything. I just think we're just so casual at times. I think the way we play is this: we look fluid and free flowing, but it can look casual and a little bit kind of you're playing within yourself a bit, and you can see they're playing within themselves because suddenly, like I say, when their goal goes in, they all come flying out the box again. So I know you've got to try and conserve energy in these games. You can't always go 100 miles an hour, but you could see Maresca was getting visibly pissed off as well, because when we were getting free kicks, the amount of times we got free kicks, let's say 10 yards behind the halfway line in our own half, instead of playing forward, we kept getting back to Sanchez. And there was a couple of times you see him literally screaming and like turned around in disgust and threw wherever it was at the dugout. You know, it was just like, where are we going? Play forward. We're already at the halfway line. Now we've gone back to the goalkeeper. And then we play 2 or 3 silly passes in the box and then lump it 80 yards forward. I've got no problem with playing out from the back, but why are we doing that? There's no point playing 2 silly passes, which might get broken up, and then hitting an 80-yard pass to nobody. I mean, you can see there's a couple of things here. I mean, you look at Mark Gui coming on for Jackson, which I've got no problem with, by the way. I think he deserves his chance. But I mean, Nkunku is just, I don't know if that's a complete fall out of favour or whether there's just been a lack of effort in training, or he thought his game against Ipswich was dreadful. But, you know, he's fallen out. You got Nkunku, looks like a star player, suddenly he's fallen out of favour completely. And then you've got Madueke getting 5 minutes at the end. Again, I'd have brought Neto off. Neto wasn't dreadful today, but he wasn't like flying, was he? He wasn't going past Mark Gehi, was he? Mark had him pretty much in his pocket on that left-hand side. So why not bring him on and give him half an hour? You've got the players at your disposal, so use them. It just seems that's baffling to me, completely baffling. I suppose I better end this notice. I don't want to go on too long with it, but I just think that we've now gone from a team that was potentially not just challenging for the Champions League, but challenging for the title, to suddenly challenging for potentially the Europa League places. And if we're not careful, that's where we're going to end up next season. And I'm not going to sit here and be horribly doom and gloom and say that's what's going to happen, but it would not surprise me at this moment in time if we do drop out of the Champions League places. Because if we end up not picking the points up against Wolves and Bournemouth, or whoever the next 2 or 3 games are, forgive me, because I've not looked at the fixture list, but you're going to find yourselves in real trouble, because then you've got Man City after that, and then you're going to end up with that run of games of, like I say, Arsenal and Liverpool, that they're all going to come running up towards you, and Spurs again, and all those sorts of sides. So, yeah, you can always beat them teams and make it life easy for yourself, but you don't want to be relying on beating Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, and whoever else, Newcastle and Villa, do you? They're not the ones you want to really rely on. If you can help it, you want to pick up the so-called easy wins where you can and just get the job done. But unfortunately, we're just not doing that at the moment.
Clearing up Hot Wheel cars, so apologies if there's any noise in the background. Let's try and be a bit more positive about it. I think the obvious thing to say is, if you'd said to us at the start of the season this would be where Chelsea are, we would have probably taken it. I mean, 3 weeks ago I'd have bitten your hand off. Now you'd have gone, yeah, I'll take that. We obviously were positive about getting top 4. Joe, we talked about that on the pod at the start of the season, so that would probably about where I would have hoped to have been. So all that in perspective, and it's fine. It's par, isn't it? You could look at it and say, of those 4 poor results, 3 of them are away from home. So that has perspective. There are no easy away games in the Premier League, even at places like Ipswich. We'll see other teams drop points there without a doubt this year. Palace is not an easy place to go, as we know. So you can look at it that way. Obviously, Chelsea have been arguably better away from home this year, but generally that is fair to say. And yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because I think I said to you before the game, Joe, like when you're playing well, you look at games like Palace away and you get pretty confident. You can sort of see a 2-3-0, 3-1, fairly comfortable win. When you're playing badly, suddenly all these games look really, really hard. And the next two, home to Bournemouth and home to Wolves, suddenly look pretty tricky, don't they? Wolves obviously got a new manager. Bournemouth have been really good all season. And they just become massive, massive games. Both evening games, by the way. I don't know if anyone's seen this really random quirk, but Chelsea don't have another home Premier League game until March, which is insane. But just the way the fixtures have fallen, there's loads of midweek ones. So they're on both midweekers, Tuesday and then a Monday, and then we've got loads of them coming up. And then after those two, we play Man City away, just as they're getting form again. How lovely. Great timing for us. And they'll no doubt be 4-5 in a row by that point, halfway through a 15-game winning run or something ridiculous. So yeah, next up is Morecambe. I think that comes at a good time, doesn't it? We have to hope that you'd expect for a relatively comfortable win, and then you kind of get a bit of momentum again, and then you going into that Bournemouth game, we have to win and then just get the points back on board and just get a run going again. Like you say, Joe, you just need to pick up a couple of good wins at home, go to City with a target of getting a good point, and then suddenly everything looks probably pretty rosy again and things change that quickly. The game against Morecambe, you'd hope and expect gives Reece James the chance to start. The forgotten man. Again, I'm sort of stealing your thunder a bit here, Joe, because you talked about it off pod, but if, and it's the biggest if of all times, but if Reece James can play the majority of the rest of the Premier League season, then he's that good. As you said, Joe, he can assure the chances of getting top four almost by himself. He's genuinely that good. The concern obviously is he can't, and I'm not even sure, even if he's 4 or 5 games in a row, that we'll be able to relax and enjoy that form, because you just know that he's one sprint away from pulling up and then his season being over. But we've got to hope he is. We've got to hope that they've worked out how to manage his injury better, and that starts with the Morecambe game and him getting some meaningful minutes, because if we can get him fit again, then it will feel like a new signing, won't it? Because we really haven't seen him for a couple of years now. On the centre-back side of things, Fofana being out for probably the season is just gutting, isn't it? Just absolutely gutting. I think what we've seen since he's been away is just how important he was to the makeup of the team. Colwell was playing better with him alongside him, meant we could defend a bit higher because he had his recovery pace. And him now gone, I think, forces us into the market. I'll leave it for you, Joe, to maybe talk about who you think that should be. You've made a great shout, I think, about where we could look in the Premier League for a potential option there. But I think if we want to obviously lock down top four, and there's a really good chance we can this season, let's be honest, we really, it's there for us, then making the right signing at centre-back in the January would be, for me, a high priority. That's the priority, I think. And with Fofana now injured, it looks like that's what they have to do, unless they think this Argentinian kid, Aselmino, is good enough to come straight in and be top Premier League quality. But I just think that that's too risky. If they could get a good centre-back in, what I've seen from Josh Eshipong today and previously, I'd be fairly comfortable with those guys, and just less minutes for Disasi, who hopefully we sell, and Tosin, who just hasn't hit the heights that we had maybe thought and hoped he could do. He just doesn't look good enough, does he? In terms of other kind of general thoughts on the game against Palace, yeah, I agree. Everyone was all right, weren't they? It wasn't as bad in terms of individual performances, and it's such a funny game, football. If we do grind that out 1-0, the whole message here is what good character, we needed that. Some really good performances in the midfield. It's a very different story, isn't it? And it's just one lapse that ends up costing you. But we don't want to be too doom and gloom, because if Chelsea can get top four this season, it'd be a brilliant step in the right direction. And we've still got a very good chance of doing that, very good chance of winning the Conference League, and who knows, the World Club Cup. So there's still plenty to be positive about. And I think the final thing I'm going to say for this note is just what you said about Maresca. And it's a really strange quirk that we've seen, because he was the opposite earlier in the season, which is that almost reluctance to make more proactive changes. Earlier in the season, he was doing it all the time. I felt like half-time subs were pretty common with the wingers, wasn't it? Didn't matter who it was, whether it was Neto or Sancho or Mudryk, whoever was getting brought off at half-time. New winger was being introduced, changing it up. Likewise in other areas as well, whereas he just hasn't really done it. He hasn't been making many subs during this run of the 4 sort of poor results, and when he has made them, it tended to be quite late. I couldn't believe that he didn't make any changes at half-time against Ipswich, as an example. It just felt, the obvious thing to bring Disassi off at that point when he had 3, right backs on the bench. And again today, could have taken, Neto, like what you said, spot on. Neto after an hour, get Madueke on, give him a different thing to think about. But yeah, that's just been strange, and maybe talks to his slight lack of Premier League experience, which again, he is still, like the young squad he manages, a relatively young manager himself. So I think as fans, we have to be patient there as well, because you and I, Joe, both think he is the right man to take us forward, and so we've got to be patient with it as well. But yeah, onwards to what Chelsea could do in January.
So yes, the morning after the night before, I'm sitting here just waiting for my lads' game to start. Luckily, they're on 4G today. We've had snow and it's battering it down with rain at the moment, so I decided to wait in the car for a minute. So yeah, I just thought I'd just speak about a couple of things that you mentioned there, Chris. I mean, obviously, I think it's right to give the balance like you did, and yes, it's you and I both know it's not doom and gloom. I think you and I both still think we can finish in the top 4. I think that's certainly the case. I think we've certainly made it a lot harder for ourselves. There's no getting away from it. However, I don't think that we should be completely worried. I think I am concerned, obviously, of our run of games, which I said in my last note there. Who wouldn't be? To take 2 points in 12 is a worrying trend. If they can beat Bournemouth and Wolves, and then go to Man City and potentially take a point or something there, then who knows? I mean, they have had a rough run of games, and they're not invincible, as we've seen. So it all depends on the next couple of games and how you fare there. Obviously, it won't be the defining moment in our season, because everyone's going to have a stage where they go through maybe a 3-4 game period, but they don't pick up many points. Newcastle had a rough start, and they had sort of a fairly mixed set of results a few weeks back, and I think Villa have done the same, and obviously Spurs are on a terrible run of games, and there's a few other teams as well that have had these situations go on, and the likelihood is that Bournemouth, Brighton and Nottingham Forest do eventually kind of come a cropper, but there's no guarantees that they will, and if they don't, then fair play to them. But we need to make sure we are certainly in the mix, and beating Bournemouth certainly will help that. As regards to the business I think we need to do, I think there's been a lot of talk about Chelsea getting a number 9 or needing a number 9, and I wouldn't necessarily say that is rubbish. I think there is something in it. I think Jackson is a very, very good player. You mentioned, Chris, about buying players from other teams who are Premier League proven and who have got a very good Premier League track record. I think one that would spring to mind if I was thinking about a striker would be Cunha from Wolves. I think he's got attitude. I think he's got talent. I think he's got a great eye for goal. He's pacey. I think he's young enough. I think he'd fit into the team very well. I think he'd be welcomed. Obviously, that would mean that we'd have to probably release somebody like Nkunku, but at the moment, that doesn't seem to be a bad thing. He doesn't look happy. We don't look particularly happy with him. The fans aren't really buying into him. I don't quite know what's happened there. Relationships do seem a little bit strained, but, that's not for me to speak about. But he would be someone I'd look at if you were talking about Premier League proven players. But my key area would be the centre half. I don't see us buying a goalkeeper, because I think they'll probably stick with Jorgensen and Sanchez for the season. I still would like to see Jorgensen play. I think he's only had that one game against Ipswich. I don't think he did a lot wrong. I don't think it was a penalty, and I don't think he couldn't save the second goal. Certainly, I think he's had some decent games against Bournemouth against Southampton. And he's had obviously some very good games in the Conference League. Again, I'd like to see him have a run, but I think Sanchez is staying the number 1 for now. I think the centre-back position is key for us. I think losing Fofana is going to be a big miss. Obviously, Badiashile then has basically dropped straight out, having desperately needed a game. He's now gone, and for how long we don't know. Tosin is definitely not the answer. I think Josh Ashampong looks brilliant. I thought he had an excellent game yesterday. I couldn't really fault the kid. You mentioned it, Chris, that Cobham graduate, the way that he looked calm, he was cool, he's a good ball player. Yeah, he gave it away a couple of times, but that's just maybe a little bit of nerves. I think it was his Premier League debut. I think that's correct. I'm correct in saying that. And he's got a confidence to come into midfield and play, and he's exactly kind of what Maresca would like from a centre-back, if I'm honest with you. But he's 19 and he's raw. So can we rely on him for the remainder of the season to play all the games and get us into the top four? I'm not sure. I think he should certainly be given a chance and given a shout, but I think I would like to see someone come in with a bit of experience. Now, the two that I personally like, and you don't ever get one of them if you've got any at all, would be either Murillo or Milinkovic. Now, Murillo fits the criteria because he's young enough. That Chelsea, like this young model. Having said that, I think he's the lesser of the two Nottingham Forest centre-backs. Personally, I think it's Milinkovic. He's strong. He's a leader. He's given the team great stability. He's tough. He's resilient. He's basically Nemanja Vidic. He claims to have basically watched Nemanja Vidic's work as a youngster from Serbia like him, and you can see that in his play. Big, strapping lad. They had 51 corners this year against them, Nottingham Forest, and they haven't conceded from a single one. And that speaks volumes. He's good enough on the ball. He doesn't, I'm not saying he's Van Dijk or whatever, but he's certainly a good passer of the ball. And I think he would give Colwill, I think he would give him the perfect partner. That would be my personal choice. And I think, look, I'm spitballing 50 million quid, 55 million quid, maybe 60 million. You might get that deal done. You might. I'm not saying we will. I'm not even saying they're even looking for a defender. But the young lad from Boca Juniors, who we've got in from loan, we loaned him out and obviously took him back from loan. We don't know a thing about him. Now, if he turns out to be a wonder kid and he's magnificent, we won't know that until he starts playing. And Maresca and the staff may know he's a good player, but again, until we see him on the field in a Premier League game, we're not going to know. So me sitting here, right now, if we had to buy one player, and if we could do it with FFP, because I'm not sure if we can or not. I know Nottingham Forest was certainly up against it last year with FFP, so it would be worth testing the water. That would be my thing. And I think he could be gettable, and he would certainly want to come to Chelsea. He may be enjoying his life at Nottingham Forest. I'm sure he is. They're right in the crest of a wave. But let's be fair, let's be frank. Coming to Chelsea gives him every opportunity to enhance his life, enhance his pay packet, and, hopefully play in some of the biggest games in Europe. So he would be someone that I would definitely target. He's an excellent player. And I think sometimes, like Levo Colwill yesterday, even just having Josh Ashampong next to him, he looked more comfortable. He looked really ragged with either Disasi, Tosin, even a little bit ragged with Badiashile, if I'm honest with you. So I think that having somebody like Milinkovic alongside Colwill will, calm him down, get him playing a lot more. And I think he would just add a real robustness to our defence. And if Chelsea see that game out yesterday by just being better organised and better in defence, we're not winning that game 1-0. And it's just like him saying to Gusto, stay here. I know what Maresca's saying, but you're staying for 5 more minutes. We don't need to win this game anymore. You sit there. John Terry did it many, many times. He'd say to Paulo Ferreira, or if it was Ashley Cole, they were you're sitting in. And the players have to organise that for themselves. And I think that he's someone that could do that. And also you'd be taking a brilliant player away from a rival. And at the moment, Nottingham Forest, whether we like it or not, are certainly a rival. So he would be someone I would definitely look at in January. He'd be my pick of the bunch. The fact he's 27 is the only sticking point. They may think he's too old. But for me, you've still got 5, 6 seasons there of potentially a very, very good player. So if you could go and get him for 10 million quid, for 50 million quid, and you had him for 5 years, he cost you 10 million a year. And I think in that position for a leader, until other players became available and players like, the guy from Boca Juniors, forgive me because I forget his name, or maybe a Josh Ashampong, whoever, if there was someone developing coming through, Milinkovic could certainly, lead the way into somebody like Josh Echepong being our future at 22, 23 years of age. But I think from right here, right now, we definitely need a little bit of experience. And I hope that Chelsea do. I love the young model and the youth model. It's great, but I think you're just starting to see those slight cracks. And I think that bit of control and that little bit of leadership in the middle of the pitch, right where you need it, I think is key for Chelsea at the moment. And that's where I'd like to see us spend our money.
Oh, mate, I would love Milinkovic at Chelsea. Forest got him for 12 million in the summer. It's actually insane, isn't it? And as you say, I think there's a deal to be done there. You'd think if Chelsea went in, whether he's a sort of age profile Chelsea would go for now, I don't know. He's 27, as you say, but he is exactly the sort of player that Chelsea need. It's just crying out for someone like that to dominate the box, like you said, classic John Terry style, and actually just be the leader at the back to take a bit of pressure off Colwill. It's funny, isn't it? Because looping right back to last season, when we met up before the Spurs game, that Chelsea won 2-0, it was actually Achipong's debut. Do you remember? I'd never heard of him, really, and he came on right back for the last 5 minutes. But we were chatting before the game about what Chelsea needed going into this season. And at that point, even back then, we said there's two players, which is a goalkeeper and an experienced centre-back, someone to kind of really come in and, run the back four and dominate in that area. And we are, coming up to 9 months on, and it feels like that's still the same story, isn't it? And getting someone like Milinkovic would, for me, tick that box massively. Premier League proven now. As you said, weakens a rival, which Forest definitely are, if we're looking at top four. And you'd think, with the business Chelsea like to do in January, people like Chuck probably going to be sold, unfortunately, will go out on loan. Chilwell, they'll be looking to, again, probably sell, but loan if not. Even Dewsbury Hall might go. You think we'd be able to raise some funds to get a deal over the line, and Forest wouldn't want to sell him, would they? But there's always a number that can be sold at. Yeah, so I'd absolutely love him. And yeah, looping back to the other thing you said about Premier League proven players, is something I said, I think about 3 years ago to you when Chelsea were signing a lot of players, and maybe not long off when we did that really big window that in hindsight didn't work very well, when we got the likes of Havertz, Werner, Ziyech, really exciting summer, but most of the players ended up not hitting the heights. And I said to you, we should look at what Liverpool had done, the Liverpool model, where they basically went and nicked the best players from a lot of clubs across the Premier League. Obviously Southampton being one of the best examples, because they got Mane and Van Dijk from them. They've just got Robertson from Hull, Henderson going back a bit longer from Sunderland. Just kind of did that. And actually Chelsea have sort of started to do it with Brighton, obviously, Caicedo and Cucurella, and then Neto this summer from Wolves. I think the reason he was such an exciting signing, I think, was the fact that we'd seen him and you kind of knew how good he could be. And I think that would be the area where, if Chelsea got Milinkovic, he could come straight in. Gary Cahill, like back in when we got him in 2012, you come straight in the team and there's no real settling period hopefully required. So he would be the signing, but I've not had any links, to be fair. So we've picked that one out of thin air a little bit, but it would be the sort of profile of signing that we'd love. We're going to finish the pod on a slightly positive note this morning, because the story coming out in the news is that Fofana's injury, he's claiming, isn't as bad as Maresca said. So Maresca said obviously he could be out for the season, and Fofana there's been leaked that he sent a message to someone saying, don't know why he said that, he could be back in 4 to 6 weeks because he's not going to have surgery apparently. So let's see how true that is. But that might have an impact on what Chelsea do in the window. But onwards and upwards, Morecambe next, then back to the Premier League action with a must-win game, and we will be back to reflect on all of that. So thanks for listening, and give us a 5-star review, please, on Apple or Spotify. It really helps us. And if you're enjoying what we're doing, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you. Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be alright.